there's been a long list of protests announced at the start of last weekend. I think these were all announced leading up to the Friday of last weekend. Here's Tommy sharing a bunch of the actual protests going on all across the UK here, and that's not even all of them. So GB News reported that there are a total of 35 demonstrations, many of them peaceful protests in an actual sense, not the CNN sense, but many of them did become riots, did become violent. And because of a militant left-wing counter-reaction to this, there were lots of clashes that need not have happened, I think. So The Guardian was saying anti-racists mobilised to counter protests at unprecedented far-right rallies, as well as lots of people trying to basically drum up Muslims to get on the street. And here's one of the examples, and we're going to look at some more real-world examples of where they were in great numbers on the streets, counter-protesting and attacking the British people. So the first one I wanted to mention, and the one that started things off really, was Sunderland, which began on Friday night, and they were one of the first. Here's a video of some people in the street. There are lots of videos, by the way. I think that there was an overturned car. There was lots of other things. There are some riot police. I obviously can't cover everything because if it's going on in 35 different places, there's so many videos, there's so much to cover. I'm going to have to inevitably miss some stuff out. But I've been following it all weekend. There they are, hitting a man on the floor with a truncheon in the legs, even though he's not really resisting arrest there. So I'm trying to pick out some of the more egregious things that I've seen, the things that I feel are of most public interest. I may have missed some stuff. I'm sorry if I have. So here is a man in Sunderland using a fire extinguisher against the riot shields. And the reason people do this is that it blocks the police from viewing through the riot shields and basically makes them useless.
I think it's worth pointing out in a chronological order. Sunderland was rioting on Friday.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So before the weekend had even began, because we knew that the protests were probably coming on Saturday, but Sunderland was already rioting. And it was quite bad as well.
They were the sort of first to do it, and they were some of the more dramatic, I suppose.
It's just occurred to me that mirrors election night. It's always Sunderland that is first in with the vote, isn't it?
Interesting. Very politically engaged.
So one of the things that went on in Sunderland that got a lot of attention was both a police station and a community centre got torched, and there were also attempts to do the same to a mosque. And I think the police particularly focused on protecting the mosque, which is unsurprising, really. But yes, here's a video. I think this is the community centre there that they've got as the thumbnail where firefighters put it out, but it pretty much burnt to the ground. And another place that kicked off quite early was Liverpool. So before there had been any protests or any rioting, there was this. Basically, a man called Mohammed was stabbed on a train. So I'm going to read exactly what it says in this article because there's been a lot of misinformation about this, and not the kind that's normally levelled towards the right. Muslim man named Mohammed was treated, this is a direct quote, by paramedics at the scene for a minor hand injury. The British Transport Police made no reference to the suspect's ethnicity and did not say if they were treating the incident as racially motivated. But nevertheless, people picked up this story and said the far right and this white man had attacked this Muslim because of a racist attack. I don't know exactly how they framed it, but that's more or less what they were going for. They're trying to say this man attacked him and that this is going to be the sort of first stone cast of the native British attacking Muslims. And we're going to see the echoes of this throughout lots of the events, whereby this seemingly is false. We don't know any of the information around it yet. They haven't released any information, so they can't know the motivation of the attack. But I think if they're coming out and saying it wasn't racially motivated and the way the police tend to handle when white people do crime versus not, I think they would have said immediately if it was. So in the daytime, I think they attacked a stand that was...
Dawah stand.
Yeah. Handing out Qurans and talking to people. You see these a lot, actually, in the UK nowadays, don't you? I remember seeing one in Reading and being quite surprised that it was just out in the open. It's basically like a recruiting ground, isn't it?
I imagine it's some sort of Saudi-funded thing.
Mm-hmm. So also a library.
Super quick to sound that they love it when they find some credulous, gullible kid who's prepared to literally convert to Islam in the street on the spot.
I've seen videos.
And they video it and
like
put
that,
it up and like celebrate this, how brilliant it is.
Mm-hmm. So this library as well, this is something that the left have been drawing a lot of attention to, that they trashed a library and they're like, oh, these far-right thugs. But I think the justification that I've seen going around for why it was targeted, not saying it should have been targeted, by the way.
The reason that they targeted.
Yes, was that it was supposedly connected to handing out Qurans or giving lessons on Islam or something along those lines. So that's what has been going around. And there were also looting of shops. The justification that they provided for this was that they were looting
I think we should use the word
shops.
Reason rather than justification.
The reason.
Sorry to be pedantic, but
That's all right. The reason that they gave was that these shops were owned by foreign people, and it's mainly sort of vape shops and phone repair shops and things like that. The things that you see on the high street in Britain. So eventually there were clashes with police that got quite fiery, I suppose. They were letting off fireworks at the police over there.
Does seem like there's quite a high demand for phone accessories and phone repair.
I know, yeah.
You know, if the amount of shops that are opened reflect demand.
I mean, to be fair, everyone does have a phone. I'd be more concerned about the hair salons and things.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just one of the
Barbershops.
things.
In Swindon, nine barber shops on one street.
Yeah, on the high street.
There's a lot of hair in minority communities to be cut for some reason.
I mean, there's half a dozen or more phone repair
Yeah.
shops and phone accessory shops.
Okay.
So another thing that happened was people's houses were targeted specifically. So yes, you can see things like this, graffiti showing certain sentiment. And one thing that I thought was quite heartening was in in Northern Ireland, sorry, not the Republic of Ireland, oops, in Belfast, the Republicans and the Unionists were actually protesting in solidarity together, which is amazing to see. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Like, again, I've said this before, but I grew up on military bases that were constantly being targeted by the IRA. And you would have a warning system saying, how dangerous is it today? How likely is it the IRA are going to commit a terrorist attack? And so to get to this point is just amazing to see, frankly.
Mm-hmm. And I also like that Palestinian flag, rainbow flag, trade union flag.
Yeah, you can see what they're opposed to.
Versus the Union Jack and the Irish flag.
Yeah.
It's like it's
It's cut and dry, isn't it?
Yeah, the international nationalists against the globalists.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing a sort of unity of the European right in a way, aren't we? Lots of, I even saw people in France sharing.
Complimenting.
Yeah, sharing solidarity. And I think that that's going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
There's also this video as well, if I can get it playing. There we go. You see Northern Irish flag and an Irish flag, arm in arm.
I don't mean to laugh, but like, again, it's just so preposterous that in any other time or place, this would never have happened.
It wouldn't. And it's just a testament to how much people of the British Isles are being tested by what they're being put through, isn't it? So it's also worth mentioning just how militarized the police in Belfast are, as if they've ever... Yeah, this isn't new necessarily, but this looks very different than some of the cases in England, right? Yeah. They were saying that they were going to use impact rounds. I don't entirely know what they were. And I tried to look it up.
It's non-lethal ammunition.
I would imagine so.
Rubber bullets. Which can still be lethal instantly.
Yeah, they do kill people, don't they? So, moving back to England again, Aldershot, a migrant hotel, had a large protest outside of it. So we're seeing that this is peaceful. They stood outside with signs.
Yeah.
And
because a lot of these were peaceful, and it is a minority of them that turned into riots.
Mm-hmm.
But whether that makes a difference to Keir Stalin.
Mm-hmm. And less can be said about what happened in Rotherham. Of course, this is known for one of the main places that the grooming gangs operated. So amongst the native British, you can imagine there's a lot of anger. And I think that that's been directed here towards these hotels, which they tried to set on fire. I don't think it went particularly far, but they certainly did a decent amount of damage.
But this is one of the worst things. We can go back to that a second, because apparently there were people still in the hotels. So whoever set fire to these are going to be arrested and charged with attempted murder.
Mm-hmm. I think there are a couple of links, Samson, here. Oh, no, this is right. Sorry, I'm just forgetting what I've got here. So there's a migrant in one of the windows here that has been smashed up from the rioting, basically saying, I'm not going to play it, but he says this is an S country, whilst he's in the hotel being put up for free. And I think that this video coming out is only going to stoke people's frustrations, and I can certainly understand why.
Can I just make a comment, though? He's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the state of the country. It is a shit country.
Mm-hmm. But
We've allowed it to
it's
become...
because of people like the guy saying it that it's this way. It never used to be like this.
Yeah, the government has allowed these people to come in and take advantage, and this is what the riots are in response to.
The England I know and love was, predominantly English, predominantly civilized, and predominantly worked. It doesn't operate like that anymore, does it? So there's also been something circulating that I've not been able to confirm, but I'm showing it anyway, that some people were suggesting that the migrants in the hotel had guns. And it's difficult to tell from there, but I just wanted to talk about it because what he's got in his hands there looks more like a camera to me. Yeah. It's difficult to tell, but I don't think people should necessarily jump to conclusions from one grainy photo.
Yeah, I very much doubt they have guns. Like, that would be, if that was supposed to be a gun, that'd be like an automatic rifle of some sort. Mm-hmm. Very, very doubtful. Why didn't they shoot anyone if they had one?
Also, why would they be walking around in a hotel with it?
Very, very doubtful to me.
Mm-hmm. So in Tamworth, another Holiday Inn was targeted. This one, again, was set fire to. Can't really get the video playing, but I suppose it's out there if you want to see it. And then to Stoke, which also saw quite a bit of violence. And the section here that I'm going to be talking about is largely focusing on the counter-protests from Muslims, which were significant and violent. So the framing from the Labour Party that this is all far-right thugs and, that in and of itself is a silly claim because a lot of the people may not even be politically aligned at all.
But, I mean, let's give them their due. There are going to be a lot of people in the riots themselves, not necessarily the protests, who are what they will characterize as far-right thugs. Okay, I agree. There probably are quite a few of those. But there are also a lot of, do we call these guys far-right thugs as well? They're definitely thugs of some kind, from the Muslim community. Mm-hmm. And again, these are not representative necessarily of the entire Muslim community or anything like that. But there are lots of them on the streets and they are waving weapons. So what do we call them?
Well,
the MDL, the Muslim Defense League.
I would call them domestic terrorists personally, because they're,
they'll call the far-right thugs that too.
And they may well do that, yeah. But they've got knives, they've got machetes, and they're defending people who have essentially attacked our way of life.
But are they defending people or attacking people in the street, I guess?
Well, we will see that very shortly. So here, hopefully I can play this without the audio. But they're shouting Allahu Akbar and running across the street counter-protest. By the way, these are the same men that are armed. It sort of runs out of steam a little bit here and they sort of just congregate. But nevertheless, there were two protests either side of this street. They were the ones running across, not the other way around. And here is a man. You'll see it there. That is what looks like a machete outside of a mosque there. Right. Funny how no one's commenting about this. There's no comment from the Labour Party. There's no politicians coming out denouncing the fact that a bunch of armed Muslim men are parading around our streets.
Well, did you see that the police had asked them to give them weapons to the mosque?
I did see that. It was ridiculous.
Right.
Just like, can you please hand in your weapons to the mosque? By the way, I'm a police officer, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to ask you politely.
Why weren't they confiscating the weapons?
Mm-hmm. Why weren't they arresting them en masse?
You would think. But so now, they give their weapons to the mosques. So the mosque has turned into an armory?
I find it interesting as well that in a lot of the British protests, they set the dogs on them. When it's Muslims, all of a sudden they don't do that, do they? It's funny. It's almost like they're respecting their culture.
Cultural sensitivities, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think their culture should be respected when they're brandishing weapons. I think, if they don't like dogs, all the better. So here's Hartlepool as well. It's worth mentioning that they tried to target a mosque. They targeted houses. individual people's houses, and there's also a video of protesters just punching a random passer-by, which I do not support whatsoever.
Well, we don't support any of this. Any of this violence. We don't support it.
And they also set fire to a police car here. There we go.
Again, you could take this out of context and say, okay, Black Lives Matter, Palestine protest, which one is it? Oh, it's the English working class riot now.
And then we have Middlesbrough here, and this is a Sky News reporter.
Can we save this? I'm going to cover this in my segment.
Okay, you want me to save it for later? Well, you'll have to watch Carl's segment later. So here is a mob attacking a lone Englishman here. These are Asian men, as they are described, and they're just all targeting one person. And there's, it's absurd, isn't it?
They're just Middlesbrough men. They're men from Middlesbrough.
That's right, yeah. I hope whoever they're targeting is okay.
But the point is, this is not the only gang, right? Yeah, there's another one here. Where they've got planks of wood, and they're beating just English men in the street.
Yeah, well, they're hitting them with these planks of wood. You can hear them shouting Allahu Akbar whilst hitting British people with wood. There they are, look, see?
Like, Keir Starmer has totally emboldened this.
Yeah.
Like, there's roaming gangs of Muslims targeting English people because they're English on the streets of Middlesbrough. It's insufferable to watch.
But yeah, well, it seems like a lot of the northern towns in particular have basically been taken over by these Muslim gangs, because I've not seen much from them other than the Muslim violence. So, moving on to Bolton as well. Similar story. Here you can see a bunch of
feel safe
Islamic
in your own
men.
country.
Yeah, here we are. Them just going through en masse.
Black clad masks.
Yeah, they're obviously not there for a civil discussion, are they?
Yeah.
This is being allowed to happen. Look how there's very little police presence, really. And they're not really discouraging them. They're just sort of walking alongside, almost for their protection. And then here they are. They're saying, they're arguing with the police, saying, we don't need you. We've got this ourselves.
I'll cover this in my bit, if that's all right. Sorry, just because these
got nothing left. All right. Well, there's some more stuff here. There's them clashing with the counter-protest here. And then the Muslims actually go after the police. Because
pulling out his baton there.
Yeah, because the Muslims are frustrated that police are keeping them away from the protesters.
Yeah.
And we're going to see more of this, I think. And yes, here's Hull as well to end on.
Obviously, there were looters.
Yes, there was looting going on. Interestingly enough, for some reason, in Hull, it was Lush and a Greggs. I don't know what Greggs has to do with this. But
delicious steak bakes. I mean,
yeah, I do like the steak bakes.
Do you remember when the Black Lives Matter rioters were looting Louis Vuitton? Right? High class things. We're looting Greggs.
So it is worth mentioning, in a sort of sense of irony, that Lush did do an anti-police campaign where they came out supporting Black Lives Matter and defund the police. And it turns out that actually maybe they could have done with a bit of police protection there. I don't know why people were doing this, and I obviously don't support looting things. This is not how British people should behave, and it certainly doesn't make any cause look good if you're stealing. So don't do that. But that's a sort of quick fire summary. What are our general thoughts about the events over this weekend?
Well, we'll cover that in the premium hangout we'll do, really, because there's so much to go through still. But I don't want to spend that much time on it.
Okay, well, that is my summary. That's what I've tried to pick out as particularly interesting. Obviously, there's a lot more out there. It's a very quickly moving story. You need a whole team of people, really, to follow it all. But hopefully that's given you a reasonable overview, and stay safe. I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're up to, we recently put out a video, the England Riots, where we talked about the situation, believe it or not, in England. And if you want to see what else we're doing, all the other work, you don't want to miss anything, you can follow us on Twitter. We post links to everything we're putting out. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.